Hey everybody, it's Brian Burns and welcome to this episode of the B2B Revenue Leadership Podcast. Today we got an episode we're going to be talking about who are most likely going to be purchasing from us. Now we're going to go into all these issues. And what's unique about today is that we have technology that can help us and data that can help us. This can help us focus on our advertising, our outreach, our sales efforts, our forecastability, and where to put our resources. DiscoverOrg has done an enormous amount of research on this area. They've got an ebook all about it at discoverorg.com under the resources. Check it out. I think you're really going to like it. We're going to have a great conversation about this. Now, this is really groundbreaking stuff because too often companies, they talk to whoever comes to them, whoever they happen to know, whoever is easiest. But that doesn't mean that they're going to buy, nor does it mean you have any idea when they're going to buy. We're going to get really deep into this. But before we do, make sure you're please checking out Prezi Business. Prezi Business is the way to convey your story, your company story, your customer story, at the beginning, the middle, and the end. Communicate that value instead of trying to list benefits, features, benefits. Here's a picture of our office. Prezi Business is the way to do that and do that concisely. So check that out. Also, Gong did a great thing on cold calling. You got to have your team look at it. They did a great blog post last week on how to open up a cold call. And please, you know, we all get them all the time. And they came up with the most productive line. Check it out at gong.io. Let's get into the interview. Hey, Katie, welcome back to the show. As a way of getting started, tell us about this study you've been working on.
Thanks, Brian. First of all, thank you for having me back. Always love our conversations. It's funny. We're obviously in the data business. We provide data to sales and marketing teams. And as a marketer myself, I'm always looking for great data. And the big question that I think everybody has is what data really predicts somebody's likelihood to make a purchase, right? It's like the ultimate sales and marketing question. And we're in this really unique environment now where we almost have too much data to handle, right? There's like everybody I talk to is just sort of overwhelmed with the availability of data and the ability to sort of make sense of it. And so we hear from so many customers who say things like, our marketing team has a predictive solution and it's they're sending us target accounts that are ranked really high. But as a sales team, like we're not really sure what's included in this predictive ranking. And we're really focused on these types of companies. And by the way, we have these different data points in like 8 different systems and we're trying to make sense of it all. And so the question that we had that we were hoping to answer through a survey was, in the sea of predictive noise, in the sea of data points, what are the data points that really do predict somebody's likelihood to make a purchase? And so in order to do that, we did what we often do, which is we conducted a survey. We had more than 200 sales and marketing professionals, and we asked them across about 80 different data points, one, do they collect it? And 2, if they collect it, have they actually seen it predict somebody's likelihood to make a purchase? And when it does, when it is a useful data point, where are the biggest impacts for the organization? Where do they see the biggest lift from really being able to synthesize all of this data? And obviously the reason we do that is as a data provider, we're always trying to figure out what are the data points that are most important for us to deliver to our customers that are going to make the biggest impact for them.
And was there any really counterintuitive things that came out of this, or what was your initial reaction?
Yeah, so I don't know that there was anything counterintuitive. I will say one of the biggest surprises was the number of companies that don't even rank their contacts or accounts on the most simplistic data, which is like your fit data, right? Your firmographic, demographic data. There's about a quarter of the people who replied who said they don't even use fit criteria to rank their accounts. And it's both surprising and not. we have a lot of conversations with customers, and we're trying to get them to, get the most value out of their lead gen programs or their outbound prospecting efforts. And the first question I always ask is, who's your target buyer? Because we want to kind of narrow in on that. And to be frank, like a lot of times they say either sell to everyone.
Yep.
Isn't true, or if it is true, you're not selling to anyone.
Right.
Or two, I'm not really sure who it is. And so I think that, it's surprising, but also as I thought about it, I realized, there are a lot of people who are still trying to figure out that very first question. We had one sales director, and this doesn't surprise me at all, but it's always good to hear it, hear it directly, who said, we asked about, their view of kind of predictive rankings. When marketing sends you a lead and it's got a score, what are your thoughts about that? And the term that he used was, I usually regard them with, quote, casual amusement. But he predicated that by also saying, but I also have only had access to tools that were fed by questionable data. So, his perspective was, if I had good data and I knew what the data was, then I probably would have a different perception.
Yeah, because, certainly when I was a rep, it was really critical because, they were often asking for, you to come out to visit them. They were asking for a free trial. They were asking for a lot of time. And, and only recently, probably within the last 10 years, have we been able to do enough investigation to even determine their level of fit without, their data asking them,
Yep.
Because like people still use BANT and they're a Fortune 100 company. They have budget,
Yeah.
if they can afford your product, whether they want it or not is a different story.
Yeah, and it's funny that that department budget data point still ranked very, very highly. So obviously, a lot of that depends on the type of sale that you have, but still top of mind for sales guys. Yeah,
and everybody's got a different view on it. Do they have budget for your product? If they don't even know about it, of course not. But do they have access to money for different uses is a different thing.
Especially if you can prove value.
Yeah. And, usually for salespeople, well, for marketing people, sometimes fit is anybody who fills out a form, which is terrible, right? Because that could be somebody who's unemployed, somebody, who's in prison, somebody who's totally has no chance on earth of ever buying a product, but then it's a lead now. And then you now attribute that to some campaign and you feel good. Then it goes to a salesperson. A salesperson sometimes says fit is anyone who will talk to me.
Right.
Yeah.
Or somebody who's ready to buy now. Right. And it could be two ends of the spectrum.
Yeah. And
so what was, go ahead.
And that's it. And it's like trying to understand, and define what fit means for you.
Yes.
Is the
critical part. And so that's what we were trying to get at.
Yeah.
And so that's exactly what we were trying to get at in the survey. And so the I would say the most critical finding that came out, one is that obviously it is important to gather this data, but that where the buying magic happens is when there are basically three different types of data that come together. And most people don't gather all of these three types of data. So the first type is what we've just been talking about, which is fit data. Like you have to, even if it's an inbound lead that comes in, you have to have some level of really basic demographic, firmographic data, right? Job title, the type of company, the industry, their financial profile, what their job responsibilities are. Very basic, like does this person look like somebody who could buy from me and is at a company that could buy from me? And so that's number one. And I would say most people do that. As I mentioned, there's about a quarter who said they didn't even do that. But most companies do a relatively good job of gathering fit data. But that's only one piece. That's only one of the three types of data. So the second type of data where this kind of buying magic happens is intent data. And so when we talk about intent data, it's like implicit behavior that signals a willingness to engage with you. So that could be things like downloading a white paper, visiting your website, engaging with you on social media. So there is a behavior that's exhibited that says, oh, like there is something, some intent here from this person and this company. And then the third type of data, which is the one that I would say most, it's the one that companies said that they gather the least, but is actually most predictive, is opportunity. And when we say opportunity, it's essentially favorable conditions that are existing at a company that would lead to a purchase. And so an example of that is I just got a new round of funding, right? Yeah. And when I get a new round of funding, I typically staff up. So if I'm somebody who's, in selling staffing services, great time for me to go in there. It could be something like there's a leadership change. So I just hired, my last CMO left and I've hired a new CMO. And if I sell MarTech software and I know that new CMO used my software at the last company they were at and they were a really great advocate, it's a favorable condition for me. It could even be something as specific as, this particular company has identified that digital marketing initiatives are a key priority for them in the next 6 months, and they're planning on investing, a couple $100,000 in it. So those are the kinds of things when you get all three of those coming together, you have the right fit, you have the right intent signals, and you have the right opportunity signals. I can now say with confidence, this person, let's go. Like we need to be after them. we need to be talking to them. And only 15% of companies gather all three types of that data.
Yeah, I think it's probably not that high.
Yeah. Well, 15% of the folks that we survey gather all three types of that data. You're right.
Well,
there's probably a level of self-selection already.
Yeah, because like the opportunity thing can also be a timing thing, right? Because you have budget cycles at the end of the year. Like the federal government's is on a different calendar year. Theirs is the end of September. And we used to call it Christmas in September.
Yeah.
Because they had fallout money, meaning if they didn't spend it, they lost it. And so that was an opportunity. And
I think when you're trying to do that at a massive scale, so if you've got 50,000 prospects, right?
Yeah.
As an individual rep, I might know that about one of my target accounts, but where you really start to see the benefit is when you can gather all of that and prioritize all of that across all 50,000 of your target accounts.
And on the intent side, there's a lot of companies out there that are now trying to harvest that, not just on your own website, but on multiple publication sites and trying to trace that. Are you finding many people building this data into their account-based marketing strategy?
Yeah. So what we typically see with the intent data, there's the two most common types of intent data that people right now are gathering are one, like, as you mentioned, kind of your own website activity. So are they engaging with me on my website? And then are they downloading content related to the topic that, really fits with what I sell? And there are a lot of companies out there, TechTarget, Bombora, we partner with most of those companies who gather that type of intent data.
Right. Yeah.
But what was interesting is the two most predictive data points that people rated as the highest are both intent types of data, but neither one of the two kinds that I just said. And it was very specifically companies who are comparing and researching other vendors in your category.
Yeah.
And so there are companies out there, whether it's like a G2 Crowd or a Trust Radius, where you're able to go and compare a bunch of vendors that are just starting to sell that data as intent data, but it's really, really early.
Yeah, And a lot of people are buying that data now, and
Yeah.
that tells you they're in market,
Yes.
which that's the hottest thing. And now they're building opinions, and this is the time that you need to get in front of them. And if you can't identify them as an individual, you can only do it, because like through Clearbit, you could do it through URL, but find somebody with the appropriate role. As you've identified in the research, the job title.
Right. And that's the trick, right, is bringing these all together as opposed to having to use all of these different disparate sources. And so, the companies that are large and are sophisticated typically have teams that can do that. But most of the smaller companies, they don't.
Yeah. I was talking to a chief counterpart of yours at a company yesterday, and he's got all of this stuff going, and we just geeked out on it.
Yeah.
Right, because it is so smart that not only is his advertising but his sales approach, it's all based off of this stuff. The people who are in market, doing research, comparing products, finding out their URL, finding out their title, who's most likely the person, and then doing outreach to them and advertising to them.
And those are the companies that are right. Those are the companies that are winning, right? Are the companies who can bring all that together. And I think, from a vendor perspective, what I think it really highlights for those of us that are in the data industry is how incumbent it is on us to help our customers do that.
Exactly, because let's face it, I think we reached peak spam last year, where everyone did just the opposite. They would any tech company of this size go after the CMO.
Right.
And I don't know if you got any of those emails or not, but,
I still do.
Yeah.
So it's funny, today's Thursday, right? I have noticed, I don't know if you noticed the same thing, Brian, but I noticed that Thursday morning is when my inbox is most flooded with prospecting emails.
It's because somebody wrote a blog
Somebody wrote a blog that's at Thursday at 11 a.m. or whatever. Totally. And so then everybody did it. So now I think it's the least likely time for me to read it and respond.
It is. And then all the bloggers, like Chris Brogan told everybody that he sends his out on Sunday afternoon. Yeah.
Yep.
So what do you do now? Everyone sends it on Sunday.
So the trick is don't tell anybody. Send
exactly.
At that time, don't say it.
Yeah. There was an agency that boasted about how they built their LinkedIn following so fast with a tool that's not legit or legal,
yes, and
it then posts it on LinkedIn. And I'm like,
I remember that.
I was like, could you be any dumber? If you figure something out, keep it to yourself. Now, how are you guys using this?
Yeah, so, I think, so one of the great things about Discover.org is that, one, we use our own platform, and Discover is one of the few places where you can pull together fit, intent, and opportunity data. Most of the intent data we pull in from a partnership, so we pull in data from Bombora into our platform, but we also have a research team that is constantly surveying the market, scouring the web, talking to decision makers, and actually gathering that opportunity data. So what are you planning to invest in? Who are the new hires? What kind of new funding have you just gotten that creates this great opportunity? And so what we're really focused on is helping bring all of that together in a way that's really practical for our customers. So it's funny, as we were doing this survey, we were talking to an analyst about the whole predictive space. And he said, part of the struggle for sales and marketing professionals with the predictive solutions is that it's such a black box. And they don't know what's actually creating this, score. And what people really want is super practical predictive. And I was like, oh, I love that, practical predictive. So we try to bring that together in a really practical way. So I can set up my ranking model and, I can see, oh, this is a 5-star company and this is a 5-star person at that 5-star company. And by the way, there's intent and opportunity signals at that company and with this person today. And so any day I come in, I can very quickly sort and prioritize my queue to go after those that are most likely to engage with me today. Now, there's a lot of additional data points that we think would be really valuable to pull in as well. And so those are the things we're always looking at building out. But one of the areas where we've put a lot of focus in the last year is actually on the technographics, so the technology install.
Yeah.
And what was interesting was, and this was good validation for us, is one of the last questions we asked in the survey was like, what's your secret sauce? Like, do you have a secret sauce predictive recipe that you use in your company? And the most common element of that secret sauce was the tech stack that their prospects had. So, for us, for instance, we have a really great Salesforce native app. And so we know if somebody uses Salesforce, they're immediately, a better fit for DiscoverOrg than potentially another CRM tool. Well, for companies who do that and who do that really well and they incorporate that into their predictive model, they see the highest results. So we put a lot of that technology information into our platform. We've really focused on that. We've built that up over the last couple of years. And so that was good, a good validation point for us around that focus.
You know what feature you need to add to that would really rock?
What?
Is the annual renewal date.
Oh my gosh. Yes. So that was like one of the top 10 most important data points, most predictive data points. The problem is it's so hardly anyone can gather it.
Yeah.
No, I totally agree.
When I was a rep, there was always a sequence of products that they bought before they bought mine. So, this is back in the day. You knew, you got to know the Sun rep because the first thing they bought was hardware. Yep. Then you got to know the Oracle and Sybase rep because then they bought the database. And then you got to know the middleware rep. And then as soon as they bought the middleware, they go, boom, now it's time to talk to me because I was selling something on top of that. And once you had that ecosystem, that back then was done, via the telephone and personal relationships, not technology, you spent your time on people that were in market and had all of these elements that we're talking about, fit, intent, and opportunity.
Yep. Yeah, and I think at the end of the day, what the research really just sort of brought home is how difficult it is these days to bring that all together, and not bring that all together in like a system, but bring that all together so that the sales and marketing teams are aligned and using it consistently, but using it differently depending on what their individual focus areas. So marketing using it to really sort of figure out at a macro level, who should we be going after and how should we be personalizing the touch points that these different prospects are getting from it, whether that's advertising or emails or event engagement, versus how the sales rep should be using it, or an SDR should be using it to prioritize their individual outbound prospecting efforts. And so I think that's where there's so much opportunity to make that more simple, more straightforward, and more transparent.
Yeah, because this can go really far because you could really kind of test like win-loss.
Yes, exactly. And keep refining it. Yeah. Yeah.
And if you lost trying to determine what did the losing accounts do differently than the winning accounts? Was it size? Was it publications that they were reading? Was it a different time event or some other element that you weren't aware of?
Well, and that's the key right there. So let's take a win-loss example. Let's say you look over, the last 6 months and you look at 50 deals, half won, half lost. most people are they're doing some qualitative interviews, and they're looking at the basic demographic characteristics of those companies. Did we win more in the big companies, or did we win more in this particular industry? But oftentimes, if the number one sort of indicator is actually something you aren't gathering, which could be, hey, that person was actually hired in the last 3 months, or hey, that person bought this tech stack, right, this technology 3 months before they came to you. Those are things that, because most people aren't gathering it, they won't realize. And so the trick is, making that easy for people to do.
And it can also help you with your product strategy.
Yep.
And you just in your forecasting as well.
Yep.
That, what's the likelihood of you winning this deal, and put your resources where it's most advantageous on a quarterly basis, and then on a product strategy standpoint on an annual basis.
100%.
Yeah. Yeah, because if you're losing because they have Marketo instead of Pardot or whatever, you can adapt your product strategy to that too.
Yeah.
And so it's pretty exciting.
It is. And the great thing is that we are now in an era where that data is available.
It is. It's crazy what's available today. and it's almost equally as crazy as how few people are leveraging it.
Right.
And just doing the bulk thing. And
well, like you said, our survey said 15%. It's probably more like 5%.
Right. But I mean, this stuff isn't even super expensive though either.
No. No. And if you think about it, at the end of the day, if you had a tool that if you had the data that said, this is who you're trying to go after, and this is who's most likely to buy from you, and you increase your conversion rates all the way through the process, whether it's setting the demo, creating the opportunity, and then winning the deal, I can guarantee you that the payback on the cost of that data would probably be one deal.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, but everybody's fine, hiring a bunch of SDRs to pound the phones all day, randomly trying to find the person, to schedule the half-hour meeting. And it's like, this is a smarter way. Yeah. Let's focus on the people who who are in market, first of all. And, and then kind of work your way down instead of... And I've always found that amazing that people always kind of prospect from cold to warm instead of the people they know out. Yep. Great. So if people go through this, and I've read it and I liked it a lot, what will they get out of it?
Yeah, I think what we're hoping that everyone takes away from it is there's probably one or two things that your sales and marketing teams could be gathering that you aren't gathering today. That are going to help you, to your point, just be smarter and more efficient at building pipeline. And that doesn't mean you have to be the most sophisticated, predictive engine out there, and kind of like the guy you were saying that you were talking to earlier, who's doing some really great things. That's great if you have the resources. But if you don't, there are probably one or two types of data that you should be gathering that you aren't gathering today, that are going to make you grow your pipeline. And it's as straightforward as that. And so I think that's what we're hoping people get from it, is start to think about what are those one or two additional data points that I should be gathering.
And you guys have been a little busy over there at DiscoverOrg, haven't you?
Always. Does anything change?
Any updates that you want to share? Or?
Yeah, I think one of the most exciting things we've done this year so far is we launched our new legal and compliance data set. So we sell our data based on who our customers sell to, which is a little unique in this space, and that's because we go so deep within an organization. So if you sell to legal departments or law firms or compliance departments, we now have a data set for you. We have the org charts, those opportunity signals, the intent signals. And what's really been great about that is that this is a market where they've had nothing like this before. So when we show them the data, they're just like, they get so excited. They're like giddy. So we've already seen a lot of great success selling to, tech companies and services companies that are really targeting the legal space.
And where can people go to get this ebook?
Yeah, they go to our homepage, which is just www.discoverorg.com, and the link to the ebook is right up from the homepage.
So those are the elements, basically. When you find intent, and then you find an opportunity, and then when they're actually taking action, when they're really going to look at your website, they're investigating it, and they match your exact profile. They've got the tech stack that typically people buy right when they buy your stuff. All of this information are the signals that will tell you exactly what is going to happen. Another signal is, Nudge.ai has this capability of seeing what the relationships are between the two companies from an employee to employee standpoint. And if they're not direct, there's risk there. And then you can expand out from there where the risk is and how to tighten that up. So check out nudge.ai and also understand how these people make decisions. It's not the pitch anymore. They talk to their peers. They check out resources. They look for reputation. They want to be approached with value, to bring them something that they don't know yet, something that they want to learn about, and talk to them like human beings. That's why this week on the Brutal Truth About Sales and Selling podcast, I had a long-time listener, 3 years, and he's been taking the course on how to get the meeting. Start the conversation, get the meeting, and he is having phenomenal results with C-level people he's been chasing for 2 years are all of a sudden replying to him now, are meeting him, are talking with him, and it's all natural and human. We've got to go back to this. This is a thing about sales that never changes. We're still talking to people. We can have all this data, which is very helpful. It shows us where the needle in the haystack is, but we still need to know how to approach them, and they don't care about facts until they care about you. So you got to learn how to do that or relearn how to do that. And that's what that course is all about. That's the results that people are getting. Check it out at b2brevenue.com. And you can also get my book on how customers make product selections. You know how to sell. They don't know how to buy. That's why I teach you how they buy. So check that out at b2brevenue.com. Also, make sure you're checking out Discover.org's ebook on opening up the black box of predictability. Check it out. We'll see you next time.